Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Got a point. Don't know how, but Tottenham got a point. That was a weird game. It was a game that felt like it was heading towards disaster. And somehow they took away a point. There's lots to kind of dig into with this game. On the pitch, off the pitch. Some of the things Postecoglou said afterwards. Something that Romero said afterwards, and plenty more. But yeah, somehow Tottenham Hotspur are a point better off. We've got this weird stat at the moment. Well, I say weird stat. Technically, the last 5 Premier League games, they've won 3 and drawn 1. It doesn't feel like that right now. Absolutely it doesn't, because this was another very iffy performance. But yeah, we've got loads to dive into here, and I do feel like the atmosphere is a key talking point. I think it's something that Postecoglou brought up afterwards, and we're going to talk about the rights and wrongs of what he said, and the feeling within the stadium as well. What's the best way to put this? I think there was a tone-setting moment. I should stress, actually, before I get into this, it's another one of these late ones. This is an end-of-day video, and I'm talking about starting after midnight. So if I come out with any utter rubbish, I mean even more rubbish than normal, let's blame it on me being tired rather than just a fool. Please. And by the way, thanks to the very nice people I met today. Lots of nice people who watched the videos and were very pleasant to me. It was very nice. And so there's a young American chap that waited after the game as well to say hello. It was very much appreciated. I don't know if it was a family member who was with him as well, another American chap. I'm sorry, I was kind of rushing to get a train. I had a train because every half an hour there were train issues today. My normal Northumberland Park route was not there and not working. So I was doing every half-hour train. I had to get there and get back. So I was sorry I was in a rush, but hopefully we got a bit of a chat. But anyway, back to the game. This tone-setting moment, it came 20 seconds in. It was when Christian Romero made a bit of a mess of a pass. Just a touch, or a lot. And it set the tone for the entire game. I felt on the pitch and off the pitch massively. Because he was back. Christian Romero's back. His first start since December. When his name was read out by I can't remember, was the announcer or Paul Coit. I can't remember, it was one of the two. I can't remember who does the very much the just before kickoff one now. It might be Paul Coit. There's 2 different times when the teams are read out. It's really not that important. But yeah, so when his name was read out, huge cheer around the stadium. Probably one of the biggest cheers we've had in a long time. Because he was back. He was wearing the captain's armband, Sonny and Maddison on the bench. There was this real tangible excitement that Tottenham's World Cup winner, 2-time Copa America winner, was back. But of course, it had to be noted that he's only played 15 minutes of football in about 4 months. He was never going to be exactly at his sharpest. And lo and behold, that was very much on show and took just 20 seconds to undo all of that excitement that had built around him starting this game. He kind of took a ball on the right-hand side, turned inside, and he tried to play this left-footed pass that he completely kind of shanked. He really made a mess of it and hit it against Evanilson, who ran on, and thankfully for Romero, Vicario made a great save, actually, really low down, close range save to keep the ball out. But it was a moment, and I'm not blaming Romero for the entire day, but it just kind of set the tone. I've said this in the opposite before. I'll always remember these little moments, and this was one in particular. Japhet Tanganga against Man City, opening game of the season in the Nuno era. I just remember Japhet Tanganga clattering into this challenge against Man City, and it set the tone for the entire game, not only among the fans in the stadium, but also among the rest of the team. And I kind of felt like this was a moment that did almost the opposite for Spurs, in that the fans around the ground, all of the enthusiasm and excitement ahead of the game kind of got just drained out of them. This kind of wave of anxiety went across the the crowd. They were like, "Oh no, this was our saviour. This is the World Cup winner, the man with the medals. He's actually won stuff. He brings aggression." And here he is in the opening moments looking a bit vulnerable. And I think that affected the crowd. And I also think it affected his teammates, who kind of had this guy back, had one of their leaders back. And like I say, the one who brings a winning mentality because he's been there, done it. He's won 3 enormous major trophies, the biggest you can for your country. And yeah, to see him instantly mess up, I think it just kind of put everyone on the back foot. And it just went from there, and it had this weird snowball effect. And of course, we had this kind of strange atmosphere in the stadium. It was very quiet. It was very flat. We were talking about it kind of in the press box, how this kind of almost eerie feeling around the ground. People just kind of watching the game like, "Ugh." And I know we kind of do that with Spurs anyway most of the time at the moment. But I guess it's the whole chicken and the egg scenario, isn't it, when it comes to atmospheres within a ground, whatever club, whatever stadium. The team must give the fans something to cheer for, but by the same token, the supporters, by their very name, support, must also kind of play their part in home games as the 12th man. It's a bit of a kind of a mutual contract, isn't it? Kind of both have to serve each other. And let's be honest, Spurs fans have been beaten down this season. They have been slapped around. They've been slapped silly, quite frankly, by the team and what's happened, and the strange circumstances, the injuries, and just some dreadful performances, especially at home as well. Because look, like I said, it's all very well me saying at the top about this weird kind of run of form in the Premier League at the moment, where they've won 3, drawn 1 of 5 games. Yet you look at the home games. They've only won once in the past 10 matches in the Premier League at home. That's disgusting. It is. It's disgraceful. It's a home record. Should not be happening in the Premier League. And of course, these fans at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium pay hugely expensive season ticket prices for their matches as well. Match tickets as well, general match tickets. They are shelling out so much money for every match for a club that has brought them nothing of that shiny silver sort to cheer about for decades, let's be honest. So I can understand a lot of the frustration right now, and especially any frustration when it's, when there's any talk about an atmosphere, because, yeah, absolutely. The players need to give the fans something to cheer about, but likewise, it's probably difficult as a fan to get yourself up and kind of excited and pushing on the team when you've been absolutely battered all season, as in battered down as a fan base. And I think all of that contributed to this kind of weird atmosphere that we had. Let's be honest, we've just had Pancake Day, Shrove Tuesday. It was as flat as a pancake. It absolutely was. And I guess within that, when the senior players who started the game especially kind of needed to stand up, they didn't. They kind of shrunk like violets, to be honest. Shrunk like violets? Shrunk like wilting flowers. You can be a shrinking violet. Tiredness thing. Yeah, I mean, Yves Bissouma, for example, his foot was like it had a spring stuck to it. Not like a cool spring where you can kind of bounce around like Tigger. A spring on his instep. So every time the ball came at him, it just went boom and just went off somewhere. I don't know what was happening. There was a few times he tried to control the ball, and it was like it was just escaping from him. He was trying to chase it, kind of thing. And one of those, I think, Justin Kluivert, I think it was, took the ball away from him, had a chance, and again Vicario saved, this time with his leg. Sorry, I've got a really itchy lip for some reason, right in the corner. So Bentancur as well. I was trying to think. Bentancur didn't fare much better at all. Obviously, Bissouma's 28, Bentancur's 27. That's two of your experienced head in your centre of your midfield. Bentancur, 3-time Serie A winner, been there at Copa Americas, playing in semi-final, didn't he? Got through to. We won't speak about what happened afterwards. Bissouma, he's played at the Africa Cup of Nations. He's played in big games. Yet these two guys right in the middle of the pitch. I mean, Bentancur did lots of huffing and puffing and pressing, but ultimately just kept giving the ball away in these really key moments, especially as Spurs just felt like they were getting somewhere. There were a few times where his link up with Porro was just really poor. It really was. I was going to try and make a play on Porro there, and I just ran out of enthusiasm to try and do it. I was trying to think what else happened with them. I mean, Basuma was hauled off at half time. Can't have any complaints. Lucas Bergvall came on and was a million times better. You know, an 18-year-old coming on for a 28-year-old. 19-year-old, isn't he now, Lucas? 9 years difference. Didn't show. You know, Bergvall came on and looked like the more mature player. And that's not good for Basuma. It's really not. But even with that change, Spurs' dreadful passing that occurred in the game meant they went in behind at the break. It was such a frustrating goal because it looked like they were just getting a bit of a foothold in the game, Spurs. It looked like we were going to get to the break and it was bigger. Okay, right, 0-0, right, there's something there to build on. You got over the early nervy moments. Now, second half, you come out and maybe you make a change or two and bang, you get in the game. But instead, bang, the ball went the other way. And it was one of those really frustrating Porro moments where I think it's fine for Porro to commit if you know the ball is going to stay up there and he's going to do something worthwhile with the ball. The most frustrating ones are the ones where he gets high up the pitch and just plays an absolute shocker of a pass, which puts everyone behind him in trouble. And that's exactly what he did. Tried to play a ball to Brennan Johnson, got nowhere near reaching Brennan Johnson. I don't know what he was trying to do. And the problem was Milos Kerkez then was able to intercept and just run into this massive acres of space. It was like running into Yellowstone Ranch, quite frankly. He just ran into this huge area of space and then admittedly a cracking cross across to Marcus Tavernier on the other side. Oh, is it Tavernier? Might be Tavernier. And he slid it home. And I mean, you could argue again. I'm a bit wary of criticising Jed Spence. Jed Spence didn't get back, didn't track with him. He wasn't quite there. But I would say again, it goes back to the source, and that's Pedro Porro putting everyone behind him in a massive problem, really, and having to react. I mean, like I say, great cross. But that's a goal that should never have happened. That should be resulting in I don't even want to sound like a robot now. Resulting in a chance for Spurs. It should not be resulting in a goal for Bournemouth in any shape or form. They came out a bit brighter in the second half, but still, Bournemouth again had another break where they. I'm trying to remember what it was. I feel like it was maybe a penalty shout that was never going to get given? I can't remember. There was something happened that Spurs had a reasonable opportunity to get in front of goal. The ball broke upfield. Kluivert put the ball in. Was it Kluivert? No, Kluivert I think set it up. I can't remember who it was now put the ball in there, but it was well offside regardless. It was one of those where you saw it going in and just everyone was like, oh no. But then as soon as you see the first replay, it's like, oh, he's a mile offside. And again, that's one of those moments where it looks like it's poor defending, but actually they've played him exactly offside. And it is actually a good line. It's a strong line of defending, but it just in the moment feels like terrible defending. It's one of those with hindsight you see afterwards. That's not to say there wasn't some more bad defending to come, but that's a different thing. Spurs kind of got back up the pitch. Sonny had that effort that was deflected onto the outside of the right-hand post. Maddison then came on, didn't he, for Bentancur, which was much needed. And yeah, I mean, I was trying to think, there was a little kind of work, wasn't there? A little triangle or 1-2 between Sonny and Maddison. Maddison gets into the box, tees up Pat Matasar for a glorious chance that Sarr, unmarked just inside the box, I think he was. He just had to hit it forward, and it was probably going to go in the goal if he connected with a decent effort, amount of power. He didn't. He dragged it wide. Goes off the pitch. As always, profligacy. That was difficult to say at this time of night. Profligacy will always be punished. It just is. And ball gets straight back up the other end of the pitch. I think it was Kluivert sold Danso this. It was a very good dummy. It was like a kind of a body swerve. Danso just came rushing out, went completely the wrong way. Clivert plays in Evan Nielsen. Jed Spence again involved playing him on side. He wasn't holding the line properly, and Evan Nielsen hits a very nice little dinked kind of effort over Vicario. And yeah, 2-0. And it's like, oh dear, this is all going very, 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 very wrong. But then Spurs kind of showed a bit of the fight that we'd seen in the past from them, that maybe we haven't seen too much recently. They started to fight back a little bit. The goal they scored, while it was very fortunate, it actually was quite a nice move that came beforehand. So Vicario, in one of the few moments where he just had no options, on this occasion he actually did have an option. Passed it to Danso, I think it was. Danso looks like he's going to the right, cuts back inside, sees Bergvall, plays it to Bergvall. Bergvall does a little look over his left shoulder, motors away, plays this really nice ball, progressive pass between three Bournemouth players, goes to Sarr. Sarr keeps running and running and running. He's not challenged, and he launches. It was a cross. It must have been a cross. Albeit a cross into a penalty area that had no Spurs players in it, and he just hits it, and you're like, I said straight away, I think it was George Sessions from PA, who always seems to be alongside me in home matches. I said, that's going in. You can just see the arc of the ball. Kepa was nowhere near it. Kepa wasn't expecting a cross, because why would you? There's no Spurs players in the box. And the ball arcs all the way, hits the left-hand post, and bounces into the net. Lovely, jubbly, incredibly fluky, but hey, it's a goal back. Still Bournemouth threatened though. Clive, I think it was, had a shot across. Vicario hit the post and bounced out. Thankfully for Spurs, didn't fall for Evan Nielsen, went past him. And then, Maddison links up with Sonny, plays a ball through. It looked like it ended up being the perfect length, because in terms of what resulted in it, because it wasn't quite enough for Sonny to run straight onto and go towards goal, but it was just in that awkward middle ground where Kepa didn't know what to do. He stayed, he kind of went back to his line, then he rushed out, and by the time he decided to rush out, he was always going to take Sonny with him, and Sonny just got that nice little touch, took it past him, and then he just knew what was coming next. And penalty given. They did that little clever thing that everyone does nowadays, where Solanke holds the ball, and it genuinely looked like Solanke was going to take the penalty, because Spurs have not had many penalties this season, have they? I'm trying to remember. I think they had one, didn't they, that Sonny missed? Was it saved? And it looked like Solanke was going to take it, but I think it's this new thing now, isn't it, where everyone then directs all the nerves and everything onto the person they think has taken the penalty, and then at the last minute hands it to Son, so he's had none of that build up and wait and all this sort of stuff. And then Sonny, which he said afterwards he'd pre-planned, hits this absolutely ridiculous calm penalty down the middle of the goal, like this little kind of calm, confident, rolling shot. And it's one of those where you think, you just know, and we've seen it happen in the past, where the keeper goes, thanks, and just reaches over and grabs the ball. But so many times they're committed to going one way, and that's exactly what happened. Kepa went to his left, and the ball just rolls into the middle of the goal. So 2-2, fantastic, and genuinely from 2-0 down, while Bournemouth was still a threat, kind of thought, maybe Spurs are going to kind of pluck an absolutely unlikely win out of this. Ultimately, they didn't. They grabbed the point, which, let's be honest, at 2-0 down, great. And you know what? Even maybe before the game, I might have taken a 2-2 draw, purely because of the fact of how kind of strong Bournemouth have been this season. Which, look, I know that's not a great reflection on Spurs. You should at home be expecting to win games against most sides in the division, but I just think the way Spurs are, this little kind of fragile nature of them, albeit the Premier League form weirdly not being that bad in the last 5 games, and I know that sounds weird because it doesn't feel like it. I think the Alkmaar game, the cup defeats, everything really just makes it all feel so depressing. But that is kind of how it is. But, another point. I didn't actually check the league table. I know I really don't want to ever check the league table, to be honest, because it's a painful thing right now. But yeah, no, they are still 13th because United drew, didn't they? 4 points off Brentford in 12th. Oh, it's just it is so bad. It is when you're looking at the results of teams like Palace, Brentford, and United, and Everton around you, and West Ham actually tomorrow. Yeah, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. They know it, but it's just not good enough. So I asked Postecoglou after the game. I got the first 3 questions, which I wasn't expecting. Actually, I thought it was going to be Sky. Maybe because he'd already done a Sky interview, I presume, for the game itself. But did it Sky interview? I can't remember. But anyway, first question I asked, I said that was really a chaotic game. But are you, I suppose, happy with the spirit shown in coming back from it? And he said, yep, chaotic game for sure. We added to the chaos and it was a little bit self-inflicted, especially in the first half. Just with the ball, we were really careless with our passing and that allowed the game to be played on the terms Bournemouth would like with their transition football. So yeah, chaotic, but at 2-0 down, it would have been very easy, particularly with the atmosphere as it was, for the boys to just let the game get away from us. But credit to them, they found a way to get back into the game and we got something out of it. So I tweeted that quote, those quotes and all of that. And people kind of seized on the middle section about the... at 2-0 down, it would have been very easy, particularly with the atmosphere as it was, for the boys to just let the game get away from us. And yeah, a lot of people got very angry at that, about the atmosphere bit. How do I say this? I mean, he was essentially stating a fact. At 2-0 down, the atmosphere was naff. It was down in the dumps. Of course it is. Your team losing 2-0. Everyone's not going to be going, yay, and not singing the happy chants kind of thing. Of course, they're 2-0 down. But I just think, as an under fire manager, just don't go near it. Just veer away. If there's any topic discussion about crowds, atmosphere, whatever, just go round it, because there's no need. There's no good come from that. They said, don't touch it. That's essentially what it should be for Postecoglou. By all means, Wednesday's press conference that we're going to have ahead of the RZ match, by all means in that game say, we really need the crowd to be up for this. We need them behind us. We're going to turn this round. We need them as our 12th man. That's different. That's absolutely fine. Say that. But just don't bother to mention how quiet it got at 2-0 down, because your team was 2-0 down. It was another ropey showing at home that you're responsible for. So just don't go near it. I generally don't feel like he was kind of criticising the fans. I think he was just saying there was a real nervousness and anxiousness in the stadium. And actually, some people said, but he also said it in his club interview. But I've watched that back and he actually says very similar to what he said in the press conference. He doesn't really change what he says. But what you also do by mentioning that is it kind of... the media then followed that up and he got to be asked more questions. I think another question was something like... that anxious atmosphere, how much do you not want that to be a factor on Thursday night? And again, you've got to talk about the crowd again. And he said, I can't dictate to people how they interact, but RZ's crowd certainly helped them on Thursday night, and we need our crowd to get behind the boys on Thursday to make it an atmosphere where maybe we lose some of that nervousness and anxiety within our game. But the reality is, we as a team have to respond irrespective of the atmosphere, and one may follow the other. If we start the game strong, it will get the place nice and loud, which will help us. And that's it. You see, that the second half is the key thing. That kind of is what tells me is that he understands, the team played their part in it as well. Of course, we'd love the stadium to be roaring and really firing them up and everything and being the 12th man. But ultimately, if the team are going to be pants, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the fans. He knows that. He's not stupid. I think he's not blaming the fans. He's just saying it's a byproduct of the way the team is playing right now. And he's pointing out, of course, it's harder to play in a nervy atmosphere than a noisy one. Of course, it's just a fact. It is. But we know just mentioning the crowd will get people's backs up. Of course it will. Like I said, there's a lot of people that shelled out a lot of hard-earned money to be at that match yesterday now. And they will be furious that he's mentioned that, and then they will associate that with them being blamed, which I genuinely don't believe that was what he was trying to do. I just think there's this little bit of a narrative right now where he, injuries. He used that as an excuse. And then last week, he, again, which I said last week, I don't think he needed to bother mentioning, he talked about the pitch, mainly being the pitch in that he was aware that it was a bad pitch, and that, that was why he didn't play Romero and Van de Ven. And people saw that as, he's blaming the pitch. But I generally don't think he was. He was saying we were aware the pitch wasn't great the day before. So he's actually saying I had time to prepare and adapt. And now with the atmosphere, he wasn't blaming the atmosphere. He was just saying it was another thing that occurred within it, and that it was the team's fault in a way for creating that atmosphere. But I think just these things snowball. People want to have kind of something to be annoyed about because they're not happy with the team, understandably so, and some people are not happy with Postecoglou, understandably so in some respects as well. So, yeah. People will be furious that he's kind of even brought them into it by association if they've bought their tickets for the match. Some people who didn't buy their tickets for the match will be furious as well. I mean, there was a lot of angry responses on social media I saw to the mere mention of the word crowd or atmosphere or anything. I would wonder whether many of those same people at some point in their own Twitter timelines this season have also moaned about poor atmospheres at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium themselves, and maybe this whole claim about tourists and things like that, and not creating a noise and all that. I'd be intrigued to see. Won't lie, checked a couple, and a couple had. I didn't go through loads, but I just saw a couple of angry things, and you can quite easily search on their profile and see how they mentioned about it actually being poor atmospheres. And again, that's not taken away from being annoyed at that, but I just think it's interesting that can you hold two completely contrasting views? I don't know. It was a flat atmosphere. It wasn't a great atmosphere, but that is also a byproduct of where Spurs are at right now and everything. A dissatisfaction with the club in general, with the owners, with the chairman, with the manager, with the players. It just runs through the club right now. So I get it, but it still doesn't detract from the fact that it was a flat atmosphere. It was. And I do think it all stemmed from that 20 seconds in moment, weirdly. It just kind of snowballed from there. And like I say, chicken and egg, that's what it is. If people don't understand what I'm saying, it's which comes first, the chicken or the egg. And I feel like it's that with atmospheres of the crowd. Because like in Europe, certainly some of the major leagues, let's say a Barcelona Real Madrid game, the idea has always been that maybe you go to those stadiums and they expect to be entertained. We demand to be entertained. And it's less so about roaring them on from the start. It's about we've come here to watch a show. We've come here to watch a performance. Whereas with other things, maybe in the Premier League more, the idea is we build a fortress. We make a noise here. You come here, it's a nightmare for you. And certainly certain clubs in Europe that we've been, we've seen it at Galatasaray, clubs like that as well, where that's as much part of the team as the players are. So, yeah, whichever way you look at it, there's no denying that winning games of football, playing good football, having a good feeling amongst the club helps foster something to believe in. And that itself leads to a good atmosphere at matches as well. So that's what Postecoglou's side have to try and bring back. There was a kind of a feeling of that before. I mean, you remember like the Chelsea game last season when they ultimately lost, but they were fighting away with 9 men, and the crowd were applauding their efforts and they cheered them off, didn't they? They were like singing even when they conceded a goal because they believed in it. And now, unfortunately, that's kind of been sucked away by the events of recent weeks, months. So you are going to have atmospheres like that. You just are, unfortunately, and the only way to get through it is for the players to do that themselves. But 1 win in 10 at home is pants in the Premier League, and it is naturally going to create that environment. But yeah, Sonny said after the game, I thought it was quite interesting. He said, everybody here has to look at ourselves. Nobody will help us except on the pitch. I think those guys who are playing need to take more responsibility. As I always say, and it's been many, many times we've been sloppy. We start sloppy, get behind, and then we chase the game. I do think that plays a big part. This is me speaking. I think it really genuinely does. The more dreadful sloppy starts you have, it prevents the crowd from getting into a noise and a rhythm and getting behind the team. I do agree with that, absolutely. He said it's not ideal. We have to be very strong and make a step forward. You can't always stay on the same stairs. You have to try and make a step forward as we move on. And it's almost as much we have to improve our stats and our growth. We have to move forward. I mean, one of the benefits was getting Romero back, and Van der Ven and Solanke got a full 96 minutes. Actually, I think Romero got 60, Van der Ven got 35, and Solanke got 96 minutes. He looked shattered at the end, Solanke. There was one ball over the top by Maddison. It looked like Solanke was running in quicksand. He just couldn't get to it. I asked Postecoglou about that, about them actually getting those minutes, and he said that's the key thing. They got minutes. Romero, just great to get him back out there. He's such an important player for us, but you could see he hasn't played for a while. I thought he grew into the game and got a lot better as it went on. Great for Dom to get 90 minutes today. He's such a workhorse for us, and I'm sure he'll feel better for that. Brilliant to get Mickey out there as well. I think before Thursday night, that was key for us to get some minutes into these guys, and thankfully they got through it unscathed. I mean, he could well use them or need them on Thursday night, Van der Ven and Romero together. I don't know. It could be nothing. I could be wrong, but I just felt like Danso at the end of the game, I didn't feel like he was moving particularly freely. I don't know whether there's something there, something up. He was still throwing himself at everything, but I just thought his movement looked a little bit restricted. So that might be one to keep an eye on, and we'll see what Postecoglou says on Wednesday. But I just didn't feel he was moving that freely. There was something about him. He didn't. I spoke about this with him actually out in Alkmaar. I was saying about his kind of this propensity he has to just limp a lot. But this just felt a little bit more than that. I don't know. Could be completely wrong, and it could have just been another little knock. But yeah, it just felt like something wasn't maybe quite right there. But we shall see. I mean, it does come at a time when, yes, you've got Romero and Van der Ven back. Danso's looked a little bit wobbly, maybe the last couple of games. It could be a byproduct of just playing so many minutes after, having not played too many in the last couple of months because of the winter break and things like that in France. But yeah, you got Van der Ven, Romero back. Ben Davies, according to Postecoglou, is back in training. So hopefully, I think he said that Friday. I wasn't at that presser, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. So he hopefully is on his way back. And of course, you've got Archie Gray, who remains a central defensive option. But we all want to see him in midfield. I would love to see him in midfield, especially with all these senior players stuttering away. I'd love to see him play there because, I spoke about this a billion times, but some of the performances he put in for Leeds last season, including against Chelsea in the Cup, he could recreate that. He could. If Bergvall can do what he's doing in the midfield, and he's been brilliant, I think Gray will get there as well. I do, but it just might take a while to actually get to see that. Back to Romero. He did make his feelings very clear about something after the game. He posted on social media. I definitely saw it on Twitter, or X as we now call it, and Instagram. He posted a post which said, once you hit the translate button, after a tough period full of things that happened in between, I'm back with the group and happy to be able to help the team. There's surely a lot to fix and work on, but we're together and eager to turn the situation around. See you on Thursday. We'll come back stronger than ever, all together at Spurs Official. Then he added a very pointed further sentence. Technically 2 sentences. Grateful to the physios at AFA Selection for pulling me out of a bad moment and getting me back on the field where I'm so happy. Thanks to everyone for the constant support. So if you're not aware what that is, because it's a Twitter handle, that is the Argentinian national team. So what he is doing, he's making it very clear it's the Argentina national team's medical staff who helped him get back and fit, not Tottenham's. I don't know, in a way, some of the media were wondering this, and maybe because Romero has been one of Postecoglou's biggest supporters. He likes him. They have this kind of mutual respect for each other. And I guess, in a way, with saying this, he's kind of backing Postecoglou in a way, because he's putting the focus back on Tottenham's medical department. Because we know this has been a thing this season, with the amount of re-injuries especially. It's concerned Postecoglou. He's spoken about that. They've kind of launched into a review of things. Again, after another review they'd already done, coaching staff and Postecoglou, have all been concerned about it. And it would have naturally divided those within the club, I think, between those who think the Postecoglou style of football is responsible for it and those who think the medical side has kind of failed this season. I guess from Romero's perspective, he's only played those 15 minutes against Chelsea after having a toe problem, and then he turns awkwardly and damages a quad muscle, and he's out for 3 months. I don't think you can claim that's Postecoglou football. He just turned funny. But I guess the idea is what happened next and why it took so long and why he came back to training and then still wasn't ready and things like that. And yeah, I mean, that's nothing to do with Postecoglou football at all. And I mean, it kind of feels like, that's what his thoughts like. It's interesting. It comes at a time when just before I was about to do this, I noticed that there's some reports from Brazil that Richarlison has been over there visiting Palmeiras, the club, because one of his old doctors, I think from his academy days maybe, is currently working there. And he's been going there for a consultation, not treatment, but consultation on what the report says is his ankle. I thought Postecoglou said it was hamstring at the time, but maybe there's a little bit more to that. I'm trying to remember now. It feels like a lifetime ago now. But yeah, it's another example of a player going outside Spurs to try and get help. I know sometimes they'll send them to specialists here and there, and quite often players do feel just more comfortable with doctors and medical people that they've worked with over the years that have helped them. But you've got that Romero incident, and now you've got Richarlison going back to Brazil to try and get stuff, if the reports are true. It's not a good look for the Spurs medical department, but there we go. On Romero, he did grow into the game. He did. I thought he got better and better, especially as the second half kind of got into it. The start was pretty poor, a couple of misplaced passes. There's one mistimed tackle that I have no idea how he didn't get a yellow card for. And actually Postecoglou admitted afterwards that he was only meant to play 45 minutes. He said, I'm not surprised that he was rusty. He hasn't played for a very long time. He's hardly played this year, to be fair. Kuti will be disappointed with that himself, but at the same time, what was much more important for me was how he grew into his game, his defensive work, his aerial ability. I mean, he was on the end of almost every cross they put into the box from corners, and I think for him, he'll feel a lot better just having played. The idea was only to play 45 today, but he was keen to stay on for a bit longer, and you could see he grew into the game, and it was really important for us. And one thing I think you could notice, even when he wasn't particularly kind of fully on it in the first half, was those passes between the lines, the progressive pushing the ball forward down that right channel. It's an area where he has so much joy with. He played 7 passes into the final third, which was joint second with Bentancur actually on the pitch. Although Bentancur kind of fluffed some moments really when he got into good positions as well. I do think Spurs have missed that with Romero's ability to play that kind of fast ball. That's the beauty of the Romero-Van de Ven partnership, I guess, is you've got Van de Ven who can run with the ball, and you've got Romero who can suddenly play a pass that splits between the lines. So yeah, he was off the pitch when the second goal went in. He'd already gone off. Danso, like I said, too easily sucked out of position by Kluivert. It's a little kind of swerve. And then Van de Ven, he's still got to shake off the cobwebs himself, of course. And like I said, Spencer's playing him on side over Nilsson. But he just felt that Van de Ven as well began to shake off some of those cobwebs as it went on. He had went on a couple of runs. He's just got to trust his body again, hasn't he? That's going to be the key for him, really. Because his pace, if he can get the confidence to do that again, it's what allows Spurs to play with a high line and squeeze the other team into their kind of half, because they know that anything over the top is going to be mopped up by Van de Ven, but he's got to get back to that confidence in himself. Postecoglou said, I think there was a perseverance there among the team and probably to the angst of our supporters, but they kept trying to play, and that's important. I think that's the best way to work your way through the struggle we had out there. And even when Mickey came on, you saw the drive he has, and having a left-footed centre-back, it changes the dimension of how we play. There are little things there that certainly from today we can take into Thursday and the rest of the season. I mean, that is it, isn't it, in a nutshell, is that it's kind of ironic, isn't it? It's like the team tried to play out. That's the Postecoglou way. They're not in the rhythm of it right now. They're lacking in confidence. But when they manage it, they beat the press and they get into loads of space behind, because that's the idea of it. But there were too many times when Vicario didn't have options and players were kind of hiding. Players were not getting out and away from the press. And so what would happen is he'd hoof it and the Spurs fans would cheer. But then they were cheering something where the ball went back to the opposition and then it just came back at Spurs. That's the problem, isn't it? And I don't mind playing out from the back. I know it winds people up, and I know sometimes it's horrible to watch in terms of scary stuff and it being intercepted. But a lot of that comes of a lack of confidence. It does, because it will work 95% of the time, and it will get you behind the opposition, who will have committed numbers to a press, and suddenly you've got space behind and you've got an overload. So many clubs do it, and it works for so many clubs. It is I prefer that to goalkeepers kicking long myself, or just passing it around the back with no real direction. And don't get me wrong, that happens with Spurs as well. That's what happens when people don't make enough good runs in front of you. You end up just playing it side to side, and it's horrible looking. But yeah, so that was Romero and Van der Ven. Solanke, like I said, it was more like a fitness day for him, because the ball was just not getting into him. The service wasn't good enough to him. He touched the ball 35 times across 96 minutes. For a little context, Brennan Johnson only played 45 minutes and had 29 touches of the ball, only 6 fewer. Basuma had 52 minutes despite only playing 45 minutes as well. They need to get the ball to him, just so he can hold it up and allow them to sweep past him, let alone do that thing that, strikers do. They like to score goals. If you give them the ball, I was trying to think of any other opportunities he had, maybe a couple of headers that were just a bit tame and at the keeper. He had one at the keeper and one that was wasn't cleared in front of him. I think actually a Spurs player ended up kind of hooking it away as well. But yeah, I think it's weird. Spurs have scored so many goals this season. They're still the second top Premier League goal scorers this season, which in itself is mad at the 13th. I do feel like they've dipped in their chance creation recently. I don't think they're creating as many chances. You could look at even at yesterday. They've hit the woodwork twice. Sarr's had a great chance that he's missed, but actually Kepa didn't really have saves to make. That's where I feel like they're just says something's not quite right at the moment in terms of the movement up there. It's all very well having 61% of possession, which they did yesterday, but you've got to be dangerous with it. And I think a lot of it came down to probably playmaker and winger issues for me. Against Bournemouth, movement is key. And I feel like, a lot of it was trying to get the ball out from the back that didn't work, and then that creates a space and a driving run once you do that. It was interesting, after the game, you could see Maddison and Vicario were having this little kind of quite intense chat as they were walking around the pitch. Maddison had his arm round him, Vicario being very passionate as he is. I'd love to know what they were talking about, but I wonder whether it was just kind of trying to find more control in the game. It was just so chaotic, the game. And he was asked actually about the control of it, and Postecoglou said it just never felt like we had the control or the momentum or fluency in the game to be able to still make it a high tempo as possible, but without it having the chaos of what it did today, because it ended up becoming a basketball game, and that really suits them. That's kind of their template, and you need to control the game more, which we want to do anyway if you want to turn it into a game where it is high tempo but less chaotic, as it was. They are such a frustrating team, Spurs under Postecoglou. Somehow that kind of run where only Liverpool have beaten Spurs by more than a single goal remains in all competitions this season. I have no idea. Some of those games they have been battered in moments, like Galatasaray, Everton first half as well. I'm sure there's others I've forgotten about as well, but just games where I think Chelsea as well, where they conceded a lot of chances. But somehow, and people keep disputing this, as people going, someone keeps saying, you're forgetting about Everton. And I keep replying, look at the results against Everton. They only lost by a single goal in the second game. It's weird. All of those games, and they've only they've never lost by more than a single game, apart from the Liverpool matches. And the reason I say that is not to go, isn't that great? Yay, they've lost, but they've only lost by one goal. What I'm saying is, it's just so annoying that the amount of times, if they just tightened up little aspects of the performances, either those the losses could have been a draw, and maybe even wins. They'd have been in such a better position. And he knows it, Postecoglou. He said it in one of his quotes today. He said, we looked nervous, we looked anxious, especially in the first half, but within that context, to come back from 2-0 down, I think the positives of that is the lads showed a really strong mindset to get something out of the game, which, to be fair, that's probably what we've been missing this year. Yeah, maybe it was last year. There was a lot of late goals last year that I haven't been getting this year. I think there's a lot of games we've lost where games have just petered out. And if we had turned more of those single goal defeats into draws like we did today, we'd be in a better position in the league. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? He kind of, on a game where he doesn't have Maddison starting, you need Kulusevski starting, because he's kind of got two playmakers, really. They're the ones. And with Kulusevski being out right now, he's missing someone that's going to come in and be the playmaker when Maddison's not there. And look, Maddison, we spoke about the other day, he wasn't great. Wasn't great in the Alkmaar game at all. Very, very quiet. So he probably thought, okay, what I'll do, look at the team as soon as it came out. He was looking to kind of pack this industrious, energetic, fresher legs midfield with Basuma Sarr and Bentancur. It wasn't going to win any kind of creativity battle, but hopefully it was going to win the ball. And then either Sarr or Bentancur can break forward, but ultimately, mostly you're going to try and get it to your wingers or your fullbacks, and they're going to sling in the ball for Solanke to try and score. But it didn't work. It didn't work because the passes were running aground. We saw that. Too many sloppy, misplaced passes. And also the wingers just were kind of dribbling into dead ends. It didn't work at all. And it ends up being a selection mistake. You look at it, and in hindsight, he should have played Maddison or even Bergvall, even though I think he was, actually says later in a quote, he was trying to protect Bergvall. But yeah, I mean, you look at the two wingers, Brennan Johnson, he is Spurs' top scorer, but he looks so low in confidence in his game, but also I think his ability to run past people. There was one early on where he kind of headed the ball on and sprinted forward, and it just kind of went nowhere with it. He didn't really get past his man at all, despite the fact that he's got a lot of pace. I still have my doubts about kind of whether he fully trusts his hamstrings. I really do. And on the other side, you've got Wilson Odobert, who I just want coaches to work with him on that end product. I'm sure they are. He's got so much ability with the ball, but as soon as he beats his man, which he does a lot of the time, he gets past the man and he's like, I don't know what to do next. I never thought that far. I just wanted to beat the man. And that is it, honestly. I said this way back at the start. That was something he was going to have to improve on, was the end product. And we saw that in his early performances. It was like, ooh, it's exciting. But that's ultimately it. And yeah, it's kind of been exactly the same since he's come back. There's a lot of bark, but not a lot of bite to his play. And he's still so young. He only turned 20 not that long ago. Coaches are going to work with him. We're going to get that out of him. But just, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. So yeah, Sonny came on. Sonny was much kind of a more direct threat. Odobert switched to the right. Didn't do too much on the right, really. But Sonny on the left was more of a direct threat. And then, yeah, Maddison, of course, coming in as well. Suddenly all the attacking passing triangles work that a little bit better. Yeah, although we had this funny moment between Maddison and Son before the game, you might have seen in the warm-up where, I can't remember who it was, Sonny bashed into someone, fell over on the pitch. Maddison saw it, ran over and started doing that thing they do with their leg and like twisting it, checking his knee like a physio would do. And the two of them are laughing. From what I've seen of the clip since I got back, Roy Keane, very unhappy, Sky Sports pundit. The old classic kind of thing. Don't smile in my day. You don't smile back in the old days. We just sternly looked at each other and got on with it like men. That's clearly not his accent. I wasn't trying to do his accent. But yeah, it's this classic old player or former player mentality, isn't it? Where everyone modern is rubbish. It just seems to have a bee in his bonnet about Maddison at the moment. I mean, it's created some funny little exchanges, but yeah, this seems to be the latest one now. But yeah, Maddison managed to overcome the hurdle of having a smile. And yeah, teed up Sarr for that chance and then played the ball that Sonny got fouled from. So yeah, he had his kind of his moments. And yeah, Sonny, he was asked in his post-match club interview about, excuse me, I've done that thing where I was going to sneeze, stop the sneeze, and I've got snotty now. He was asked about, not being in the starting lineup, you must feel really fresh. And you could just see kind of on his, in his reaction, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be a sub. I don't want to be a sub. But he didn't say it like that. He said, I still want to play every game, every single game. Physically, I still feel better than ever. But look, it's a team and everyone needs the game time. With the squad we have right now, it's very, very helpful. And you can go to the game with fresh legs, with fresh energy and mentally and physically fresh. The most important thing now is performance-wise and to get a result, it's definitely helpful. He was very disappointed with even a point on Sunday, which is good. I like that. Even if it was progress after Thursday's absolute naffness. He said Thursday was unacceptable. The performance and the way we took to the game with our attitude, it was very, very bad. But today I'm also really not happy, really happy with the result. And we can look in a positive way that we came back from 2-0, but it shouldn't already happen at home. It's already in the past, the game. We have to look forward, be positive and take some tough moments because Thursday is another big game at home. We need everyone from the supporters, players, staff from the club. We need everybody with that game to turn it around. I'm interested to see what part Matisse Tell has to play on Thursday because now you've got Solanke back. Postecoglou kind of suggested that was going to be the key to unlocking Tell as a bit of a winger again. It could well be on Thursday night. Maybe we see Sonny, Solanke and Tell. I'd be quite intrigued to see how that works, to be honest. A new attacking trio. And you've got Mikey Moore. Mikey Moore couldn't even get on the bench yesterday. And against RZ at home last time, he was Neymar, according to Maddison. Absolutely tore them apart, didn't he, with some lovely runs and stuff. So hopefully he gets some minutes. That would be very much appreciated. Yeah, we'll see. They just need to get their creativity going. They need to create a lot of chances. They need to make life really difficult for RZ on Thursday because, they need to prolong this European adventure. Another young player, got to talk about him before I head off, Lucas Berval. Postecoglou might not be a fan of the stat that is assists, as he told me the other day. But, he got his first Premier League assist, Lucas Berval, yesterday. Regardless if he's not an admirer of that stat, I'm sure Postecoglou is very much, I know he is an admirer of Lucas Berval because he is turning into a bit of a star in the making, isn't he, before our eyes, really. He kind of made a mockery, I felt, of his more senior midfielders' displays because of the maturity of his performance. I get the impression that he's been the kind of kid that just has not probably takes the football to sleep with him. He walks around with it, runs with it, constantly a football at his feet. It is like an extension of him, isn't it? And you just watch the way he is with it. He kind of caresses it with the way he plays. He cares for it. He twists and turns with it, protects it. There's the odd youthful error. He was kind of knocked over at one point on the ball yesterday and he lost it. But on the whole, he's just remarkably difficult to get the ball off of. He's such a wonderful young player. It's very exciting to watch. And the way he uses his body, the way he turns, it's very early days. I'm not comparing him directly to this player, but the way he turns his body in those moments does remind me of kind of a young Luka Modric when he was at Spurs. And to be fair, Bergvall was even younger, wasn't he? He is even younger than Modric was then. But you just kind of see that kind of confidence on the ball that he's just not going to lose it. He drifts past players so easily. I feel like that's something that he's really not discovered in his game because it probably exists in Sweden, but I think he's discovered that he can do it in the Premier League as well, and that's huge for him. Hey, look, if he even has half, even if he has a third, quarter of the career that Modric has had, he'll have had an incredibly successful career because Modric is one of the game's best, and we were so lucky to see him at Spurs. It's just a shame that Spurs never really grew at the same rate that he did. I just can't believe he's still playing. It's amazing, isn't it? I asked Postecoglou about Bergvall, and he said Lucas was great. He's been great, but he has played a lot, and we've just got to be mindful of that. He's becoming an important part of our team. I thought he made a real big impact when he came on. Like I said, we were sloppy when we were on the ball in the first half, and he's one who takes a bit more care with it. He's a technician, and he carries the ball really well. I thought he and Sonny made a really good impact when they came on. I don't think the technician, unfortunately, is going to stick as a nickname for him. I like it, though. It does sum him up nicely. Bergvall, the technician. Coming to cinemas near you. Sounds more like a Jason Statham movie, doesn't it? Where he beats up people in the technical world. Yeah, like I said, his first assist in the Premier League. It is a moment. I know it's a stat that Postecoglou won't care too much for. I wonder if it was one of those where he'll go, but it was a good assist. Because it was a lovely ball through. And yeah, it's way back in the move, but it was a nice. I think Bergvall will be more one for the pre-assists over the years to come. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. And yeah, and I think people forget about Sarr as well. Sarr's only 22. He really is got so much more growth to come from his game as well. You know, he's an Africa Cup of Nations winner despite being young. I know he didn't play too much of a role, but he will, in future tournaments as well. But just at Spurs, he's put in some big displays, scored some big goals, big moments, big teams he's played. He's got 6 goals and 2 assists this season as well. He needs to find a bit of consistency with his technique, I think. But there's so much there to work with. Coaches must love him. Postecoglou really likes him. He raved about him within the first couple of weeks of joining Spurs. And I think it's because he is a bit of a blank canvas to work with. He's got a bit of everything, Pat Maddison. You've just got to kind of guide him and mould him into whatever you want him to be because he's that versatile as well. And we're at a stage now where I think Bergvall needs to be one of the first names on the team sheet. Certainly in the midfield needs to be the first name on a team sheet for me because of everything he brings, the bravery, the care for the ball, the tactical awareness as well, and the engine he's got. He's got a terrific engine on him. And I think maybe Thursday Sarr joins him. Maybe it's Bergvall, Sarr, and Maddison. Maybe it's the team choice because Bentancur's suspended. And let's be honest, Basuma probably looks like his head's still at that French ski resort, isn't it, from earlier in the week? It feels like with every passing match, Postecoglou trusts him that little bit less. Just my feeling. Yeah, Thursday needs a big performance from all of them, really. The key players that are back, the spine of the team, the young players like Bergvall, needs work rate, needs movement, because as Sonny says in this quote, team sheet will not win the game itself. Quality doesn't bring the wins, he said. The game always needs a mentality and the care and the performance. Hard work always matters. The individual quality you don't have to ask about because everybody is playing in the Premier League and there's a reason why we're playing in the Premier League. Football is not only the sport that can turn around. We need to be focused, take it seriously, respect our opponent and do everything we can to turn it around, especially at home. And look, they can beat RZ. It could give a second win to their season. It prolongs the excitement of the season into next month, which we all desperately need. And it could have a bit of a momentum in the Premier League and get them on a bit of a run of that as well. Lose, the campaign's all but over, really, isn't it? In March, early March, which is just rubbish. It's only kind of mid-March by then. And we know at that point, if there's nothing to play for, we know what comes next at this club, where the appraisals seem to happen being dished out by those at the top rather than at the top. It is those below who are appraised and found wanting. So we know what that will lead to. We start the cycle again. But hopefully a win. That would be great. It would just give us all at least one more European adventure this season. And hopefully more. It would be amazing if this absolute chaotic mess of a season ended with something remarkable, but they're going to have to play a hell of a lot better than they have in the last couple of games. A hell of a lot better. But there you go. Right, it's very, very, very late at night in the early hours of the morning now, so I need to go. This will go online early in the morning, and I've got a busy day tomorrow, and then got to do an interview with an ex-player, which will be interesting, and then we lead towards Thursday, press conference Wednesday. Right, time to head off, and I shall speak to you later in the week after that. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.